normally we didn't move at night, but on this occasion, we humped out after dark and we spent maybe an hour or two traveling to a area to be a blocking force. They had information that there was a hooch or something out where an NBA officer would be. So we set up a perimeter and it's nighttime. We had, yeah, three strobe lights and we put a strobe light in our steel pot and held it up so the Huey gunships could see our position. I held one in my steel pot and made damn sure that the helicopter could see it. They just tore the place in front of us up. The next morning, we were doing a search of the area. They gave us a quote unquote body count of 3. At that time, body count was everything. And one of the one of the young ladies, Vietnamese lady, had been knocked out or passed out, lying on her back. Uh, was kneeled at her head, and he had her left hand in his hand looking at her ring, and she moaned and rocked her head side to side. I'm standing just right at her feet, and he stood up quickly, yelled, "Get back, get back." Took a couple steps back, and he on automatic went across her face. I watched her head just kind of stretch out like a Halloween mask, and it got worse from there. Those things just never go away. They never go away.
Did he think that she was going to set off a grenade or something?
You know, I don't know what his thinking was, but part of what disturbs me most was it happened so suddenly. She was in no way a threat to anyone in her condition at that moment. And that has always bothered me. That has always bothered me.
Was your perception of the soldier that he just panicked or thought he saw something he didn't see, or or do you have any thought about what was going on with him?
Part of I have no idea. And the word panic, I would answer to yes. Part of our area, part of our thinking was um, they're here and they want us dead. For the entire time I was out in the field, our thinking was every Vietnamese person that's looking at me would wants me dead and would kill me in a heartbeat if they thought they could get by with it. And so there was quote unquote no safe place. And so his thinking is that, and it was just a sudden response. He was startled. When I got home, I was by myself and I would wake up at night and it would be dark in the room and I wouldn't recognize the smells and the sounds. And I would be afraid to move, afraid to open my eyes because I didn't know where I was. I had to start leaving the lights on all night so I could wake up and not be in the dark. But that I'm sure caused me issues in the future. She was just totally innocent lying on her back and she came to, she moaned, moved her head, and she was shot and killed. And when I would wake up at night after getting home, not recognizing the smells and sounds, not knowing where I was afraid to move.
The Vietnam War, I mean, especially for the guys out in the field, you guys, the pressures are just so intense. And I think war is always, I mean, I don't know from personal experience, but I'm imagining war is just always just so intense and so full of stress. But as I think about what you guys are dealing with in Vietnam, um, the NVA, they're in uniform, but the Viet Cong aren't. You don't know who's friend or foe. You can't be sure. You just said there's this feeling, and it almost has to be an inevitable feeling that if you don't know who's friend or foe, then after a while, the safest thing is just to conclude that in some sense, every one of them is a foe.
Exactly. That's what I was just saying, that everyone for that, the entire time I was in Vietnam, my thinking was every Vietnamese person there that saw me didn't want me there and would be happy if I was killed. Yeah.
You mentioned this incident of the woman who, comes to, and then the soldier is, we'll just assume he was startled and maybe thought she was going to set something off, and so he responds that way. And you said something like, and that was, from that point on, things got worse. Um, I'm wondering what you meant by that.
Another person came over and disrobed her completely and put the crest of the 2nd of the 14th in her forehead. It's a steel pin, and he pounded it in her forehead. And then wrote Delta Company 2nd of the 14th in a pen on her breasts, and then did other things that I won't go into. And I have always thought there's something wrong with me. Why do I think about that? Why can't I just put that out of my mind? In counseling, one of my counselors asked, what do I think? Where do I think that person is today? And I said, that person was not, and in my view, is not a good person. They're probably either in jail or dead, because no one would do the things that that person did.
Yeah. It says something though about, what this war became. Um, the psychology of it. We've talked about all of the things that are coming at you. The enemy's coming at you. One of the enemies not wearing a uniform, so you don't really know who the enemy is. You can't be sure. We've talked about that. The stress, coming to the reasonable assumption, the understandable assumption that everyone in some sense is an enemy. You got the insects and the snakes. You've got the traps. You got the weather, the heat and the humidity and the rain and everything else. Um, and then you've got this feeling that the trees in the Michelin plant are more important than in the Michelin farm are more important than we are. It just seems like a context where the kind of thing you just described, as horrifying as it is, it's like it's not hard to understand how that could happen. Just either some guys who would have that kind of propensity to do that anyway now are in a context where they can do it and get away with it, or it's just such a stressful and crazy situation that some guys just kind of psychologically snap. Now that's my assessment as an outsider. I'm just interested in your response to that.
The majority of people uh, were just outstanding, good, honorable people. And I only saw on one other occasion we had taken a POW, and the M60 carrier quietly put his M60 on the ground, walked over to the POW that we had just captured, and just punched him. Other guys rushed over and stopped it, but that was the only time that I saw anything. We felt that we were under attack and being shot at, and we had nothing to shoot back or fire back at. And so there was no outlet for the rage, for the anger of seeing our friends and our buddies wounded or die.